Hi there, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar, which is all about the importance of a placement. We've got here today a panel of people which will hopefully give you some great tips if you're thinking of doing a placement year. So starting with myself, just a little intro. My name is Sophie Bannister. I have worked at Enterprise now for just over 7 years. It started as a graduate on the management training program, so not a placement student, but we have got some amazing placement students here to talk to you today. I worked throughout the rental branches, worked my way up to a manager, and then I stepped into a talent acquisition role, which I've now been doing for around 3.5 years. So you might have seen me on campus around the Northwest. I come in and do careers fairs. I talk to students about placement opportunities and graduate schemes, and I'm more than happy to connect with any of you if you have any questions following the webinar. Sam, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Sophie. Been at Enterprise for 6 years, started as an intern myself, so a bit of experience on the placement standpoint. Worked my way up to area manager, fast progression, worked really hard throughout to get there. So
thank you very much. Chris?
Morning, everybody. I'm Chris Barlow. I'm the Director of Employability and Placement at the University of Liverpool's Management School, and I oversee our management school student journey from when they start in year one, right the way through to when they graduate. So hopefully on that pathway, securing a placement and ultimately a highly skilled graduate job.
Thanks very much, Chris. And last but not least, Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm currently a business student at Edgehill in Ormskirk. I've just finished my year placement with Enterprise. I had an amazing experience, so I'm still very much in touch. I still work part-time in a branch, and I'm a campus brand manager at Edgehill too.
Fab, thank you. And we'll hear more of our amazing panel throughout this webinar, but I'm going to get straight into it. So first of all, a lot of people, I wasn't too knowledgeable about this subject before I actually sat down and thought, actually, what are the differences between the three things that you see on the screen here? So I thought I'd just break it down a little bit for you in terms of what's a placement, how does that differ to what an internship is, and, how does that all look in comparison to work experience, which I'm sure a lot of people will have varying levels of different types of work experience already. But, what can each one of these give to you and why are they different? So first of all, we've got placements. Now, a placement, which is why we're here today to talk about, is actually an integrated and assessed part of a student's degree. So a lot of courses at universities will offer what they call a year in industry, essentially. So what that is it's usually when you're doing an undergraduate degree, you do your first year at university, you do your second year at university, you then take a year out and you go and work within a company, doing a certain role as a year in industry placement. And then you go back to university for your final year, the same as you would have done your final year without that placement opportunity. So you're applying the learning essentially from the course that you're doing at university into a real life workplace and applying the learning from that workplace back to the course when you go back for your final year as well. So I wanted to actually very quickly I'll come to you first, Hannah. About, obviously you joined Enterprise, you're now in your final year, so I get that you've only been back maybe a month or two, but are you already seeing that you can, you're seeing that placement year helps with what you're studying currently?
Yeah, massively. So even like the theory side of it that you learn in university, now having that experience of work, like being in a workplace, I've got so much more I can relate it to, and I've got a deeper understanding of how businesses work, and I can apply it much better, as well as that, like separate from that too. I'm a lot more like driven because I can see where I want to go in my career. It's more, I've got like a clearer path now because I've been exposed to that year in industry and got so much from it.
Fabulous, thank you. I'll come to you in a little while, Sam, because there's loads and loads to cover. So the internship, how that differs from placement, and there is a little bit of confusion here because companies will call, roles different things, but essentially what an internship is, it's extracurricular. So it's not part of your course that you're doing at university. It's usually something that you might want to do to add to your experiences, add it to your CV. It's normally shorter, so you don't tend to do an internship that would last a full year. but you might do a summer internship, or a week's long internship on a with a certain company or something like that. As an example, Enterprise do a summer internship, which is 3 months across the summer, and that's not something that your university requires you to do. That's something that you would seek as extra to add to your CV, to build your experience, to give you more of that kind of real world experience. And then last but not least, we've got work experience, which is usually completely separate to your studies. It's kind of that earning cash, alongside your studies, or, in the summer or something like that, which if you're really strategic about it, it can link really, really well and help you to add some really relevant things to your CV. So for example, if you want to go into that business industry, or you want to work with customers, for example, when you've graduated, or even on your placement year, doing a work experience or part-time job alongside your study that's to do with working with people will always, that can really go in your favor as well. But it's really there to kind of help you earn that extra cash, give you some more money when whilst you're a student. But it can really, really help when you're looking for those placement experiences and them graduate opportunities, because the more experience you've got, no matter what the field is, it's really great to have on your CV and be building those core skills up, without even really thinking about it. You might be there just to earn a bit of extra cash, but actually you're enriching yourself with all of these amazing qualities and things that companies are out there looking for as well. When do placements open? Now, with the following few questions, I just want to be really clear that all companies are different. So what Enterprise might do might be completely different to what another graduate recruiter or placement provider provides. So bear that in mind, and I will talk about this going forward. But one thing to be really aware of when placement jobs open, I would say, is familiarize yourself with the companies that you're applying for. So if for example, you're wanting to apply for a placement opportunity with Enterprise, then just make sure you know when the jobs are open. Ours are already open, as a bit of a hint if anyone out there is looking for something. So I would say be starting to think about that application right now. Other companies, they will have a set time of year that might be completely different to us, where they have it open for 2 months. It could be they're open from November to January and then they close, or it could be that they're open until they're filled, which is similar to what we do. So we've got a certain amount of positions that we want to offer as placement students, and when they're filled all over the country, that's when we shut the jobs. So it's kind of like a bit of a first come first serve. So any tips from you, Chris, on this? I'm sure you'll have lots of students coming to you asking questions about placement jobs and when they're open.
Yeah, I suppose that given the placement applications open towards the start of a student's second year at university, I think the biggest bit of advice that I could give is not to wait until they actually open to do something about it. Try and do something about it as early as is possible. So effectively that's using your first year at university, which I know there's a lot going on in your first year at university, but just get involved with extracurricular activities, look for that part-time job, and then make the most of the summer by researching the company that you're interested in. So trying to identify what skills and what values they're looking for, and also thinking as well about sustainability. So the more that you can do in advance of the applications opening, the better your application is going to be, because you're not rushing to try and get that application in as soon as they open. You've actually done all the preparation in year one and in that summer at the end of year one as well.
Great advice. Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about that kind of leading up to, in your first year, already starting to make them connections and building that experience. Definitely great tip. So when should you apply? I think this really closely links to the first one when do the jobs open, first of all? And if you know a job's open, then what's stopping you applying straight away? Chris had a really good tip actually here. Chris, it was about kind of which ones to apply for first. If you want to go for it, that'd be really good.
Yeah, no, it's just don't make your first application your dream job, because you're likely to make a poor application. Apply for your first applications to the type of roles that you might have an interest in, you're not 100% sure, just to get a little bit of experience about what the process is actually like and what you need to do. And then when you've got some of those applications in, maybe you've got some feedback from maybe where you've not been successful, then that's when you can start thinking about the jobs that you really, really want. Because otherwise you could get frustrated and disappointed very early on in the application process.
Great tip. Sam, do you remember, I know this is like 6 years ago now, but do you remember roughly when it was that you applied for Enterprise? Was it straight away? Were you a bit later in applying, or?
I applied around the November mark. Similar to Chris's point there, you know, I knew Enterprise was one that I really wanted to do, because wasn't sure what I wanted to do after uni, which is great. You get a lot of exposure at Enterprise. So I applied for a couple of ones before Enterprise. Had feedback from few and got, you know, into really further stages with some other companies as well, which was great, and then allowed me then to apply my learnings from them to this one, which enabled me to get the placement at Enterprise. So that is a great tip and something that I'd advise, you know, other students to do for sure.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, both of you there. When do placements start? Again, I've got to keep stressing this, but each company will be different. So if you apply to one company and they said that their start date is September, do not take that as every company that offers a placement is going to start in September, because that's not the case. So just make sure you make yourself familiar, ask the questions throughout the recruitment process. When does it start? You can start in some companies quite flexibly, like at Enterprise, for example. We have placement students coming to us that will start in June all the way through to September. So, you know, we'll have them kind of in you know, filter through rather than all start on one date. Just be aware that obviously if you start in the June, then you'll be working to the next June because it's a year in industry placement. If you start in September, you're going to be working till the following September. So right up until the point where you're going back to university. So it's really, really personal preference. Do you want a little bit of a, you know, a break or a holiday at the start, or do you want one before you go back to uni in your final year? Like, what do you want that to look like? Other companies will have one big start date where all of their placements start on the same day in September or whatever it is. So just make sure you're aware of each person's process before you go forward and booking your summer plans or anything like that. Don't get a placement. Chris, what would your advice be to someone that probably gets a lot of students coming to them that are worrying about getting that placement, or if they've not had an offer yet or anything like that?
I'd recommend students to try and work out why they didn't get the placement in the first place. So using the feedback that they'll have been given when they've got to, say, the final stages in terms of the interview. Maybe have a look and to see if there were any gaps that were missing in terms of what was on the CV, and trying to fill those gaps in to make sure that when you come to apply for a graduate role, which you will do in the following year, that you've ticked all the boxes and you know that you can make a successful application going into your final year.
Going to spend a little bit of time now on reasons why a placement could be the right decision, and we've got a few points here to kind of work across, and I'm going to bring in the panelists as well as you know, from their point of view as to why this helps them as well. So the first one is actually being able to build your professional network. So meeting companies in the industry that you want to be in, making those connections, you know, using LinkedIn and platforms like that to do that, and actually reaching out about those opportunities. So not just relying on, you know, word of mouth or, you know, going on a job board to find these, but actually if you've already started, as Chris said, in preparing yourself in your first year for these kinds of things, then you might already have some really good connections that can point you in the direction of a really good placement that would be up your street. Obviously you start to build your professional network throughout that year in industry, so that when you are graduating, you've already got great connections in the field. You know, if it is a company like Enterprise and you have done a really good job on your placement, then you know, you've got that opportunity to come back to us at the same level that you left. So not having to start from scratch, but actually coming to us pretty much, you know, trained to be a manager within our business, and you know, you're already a year into your career. So being able to kind of make connections like that. It also gives you a chance to specialize. Now, Sam, I'm going to come to you on this, because you did say you liked the sound of Enterprise because you didn't know where you wanted to go. So did it give you a chance to kind of figure that out?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do after graduation. So I look back at my time now, and Enterprise gave me the exposure to a variety of different parts of business. For example, finance, marketing, management, sales, you know, finance. So obviously on the other side of my graduation, I realized I loved all parts of it. So I wanted to stay in management and have touch points to everything. So it allowed me to realize that management was where I wanted to be in a business, because you get touch points to a variety of things. But the placement gives you the idea to specialize into key areas. You know, look at yourself, Sophie. You've gone into obviously the role that you're in now,
Yeah.
From the management program. So it's a great chance to specialize in something that you may want to do in the future.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Sam. And I suppose that feeds into gaining that sense of direction. So, you know, you're opening yourself up to all these different industries, you know, whether that be in a completely, obviously not just enterprise, but different companies out there that offer different things, gaining that sense of direction, figuring out, actually, is this for me? I've done it for a year now. Is this something that I want to continue after I've graduated? Or actually, has it opened my eyes to actually a different part that I want to go into? But it's all that sense of gaining that direction. You'll be more employable than your peers. Now, you've essentially got a year ahead of them because you've got a year's more experience than they have on their CV. You'll be able to earn and save money. I don't know if that's a little bit looking on the positive side there. If you get to save money while you're a student, I think fair play. But being able to earn money is a fantastic way. Like, obviously, you've probably just done 2 years of being a student where you know, you don't have loads of disposable income. So actually getting paid full time to do a role can help you with your final year if you do manage to save, and, you know, that can really help as well. You'll probably do better in your final year. Now, Hannah, again, you have only just gone back into your final year, so I get that you've not had the full year experience yet. But how do you feel as a final year student, having had all this experience now going into your dissertation?
Yeah, I think it's really helped me actually. I think it's like, it's gave me, as I said before, it's gave me like a clearer view of what I'm actually working towards. So it's made me more motivated to get stuck in and get stuck in early. So I'm like excited to graduate now. Like I'm ready to like finish and like do the best I can in my final year, make the most out of being in education while I can, to make sure that it does help me like be successful in the future. But like it's massively helped me, like even knowing from like being with other students, everyone that's done a placement, I feel is just in a different headspace and is just more ready and prepared with the studies.
7, so you'll have the opportunity to leave uni life behind for a year. Can seem really daunting actually, and you might be thinking, is that a good thing or is it not a good thing? But it gives you that opportunity to get used to what it's going to be like when you're not a student anymore. Chris, I think you had a good point on this when we were talking it through. Is there anything that you wanted to add here?
I always feel guilty when I talk about students that have been on placements in final year, because effectively they are a student, but I see them as young professionals. They've been away for a year, they've developed that 9 till 5 mindset in terms of the working day, and they bring that back to campus for the final year, and they really utilize that to their benefit, so that a 9 o'clock lecture on a Monday morning doesn't seem as daunting as what it was in year 1 or year 2. And, you know, if we then got a 9 o'clock lecture and then the next lecture is maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you tend to find that the returning year and industry students don't head home and go and watch television or anything. You know, they head to the library and make the most of the day, and that benefits them so well, not just academically, but also from a health and well-being perspective as well, because you feel in control of everything, you're meeting the deadlines, and you're not having to work those longer hours that students become accustomed to in year 1 and year 2.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. You can also improve your practical skills. So, you know, a lot of what you do at university will be theory based. You'll learn all of kind of these different business models or whatever it is that you're learning on your course, but actually having the opportunity to put it into a practical scenario where you're doing it. You're not just kind of learning the theory behind it, but you're actually doing it and you're improving on those skills as well. And you're learning employability skills. So not only are you going through recruitment processes, gaining that really, really valuable knowledge of how you present yourself, how you sell yourself, but actually you're learning employability skills that you perhaps haven't had the opportunity to grow yet as a young professional or as a student. Actually being able to have all of these different attributes to yourself, all of these amazing skills and qualities that you can put on your CV going forward to make you more employable as a person as well. And then we've got some top tips for you, and then we're gonna end on the top tips. And any questions that you have, please do be writing in the chat box so we can come to these at the end. So some top tips we've come up with for you in really kind of figuring out what that placement opportunity looks like is mapping out exactly what you're looking for. Something that I see quite often is what we call a scattergun approach, in that you'll be thinking, I need a placement. I'm going to apply for 200 jobs. I'm going to apply for all of them and hope for the best. And hopefully one will stick and I'll get a job. Whereas actually, if you've thought a little bit more strategically about it, if you've mapped out what it is you're looking for, what are the top 10 companies that you'd love to join, then you can spend more time researching them, putting everything you've got into your application. You've got more chance of being successful at one of those top 10 that you've outlined than you have of just sending the same CV to hundreds of companies. Making the most of your support networks, you know, friends, family that might have connections you've gained on LinkedIn, professionals that you've seen come into university to deliver talks, careers fairs, you know, people that you've met there, your lecturers, your careers teams, all of these different people that you can use as support around you. The placement and careers teams are going to be really imperative. They can connect you to people that can take you ahead in your career. So for example, Chris, like we've worked together, you know all about enterprise. A lot of your students have come to us on placements. You know, if a student came to you and said, I'm really interested in management, do you know any companies? You know, not saying that you would go straight to us, but you'd probably have a few, but that's just one way, isn't it, that you could use?
Definitely, and I'd encourage students just to get involved. Try not to be afraid. It can be quite intimidating going to a careers fair when there's a lot of businesses that are there, but just explore and find out what is available and pop along to the careers and employability departments within your university. They are always so helpful, not just in terms of talking about what opportunities are out there, but also to help you with the application process as well. They're the people in the know, and they're the people that you want on your side.
And these and careers teams often put on, you know, application writing workshops and, you know, how to be successful in an assessment center and things like that. They're a great place to meet employers, because employers normally get involved with those kinds of workshops as well, but just giving you them tips to succeed when you're going through recruitment processes and things like that. Use the peers that have done a placement. Top tip, you know, there's going to be people coming back from their final year that have done placements with the companies that you might want to work for. So asking them about it, you know, finding out what it was like, finding out if they see the benefit and you know, it's been worth that year out of university. And like Hannah, for example, you're a campus brand manager. You literally on your campus talk about this scheme and you help people through the application process, don't you? So
yeah,
you meet people like that all the time, really.
Yeah, 100%.
We've got companies at careers fairs, which, you know, we've kind of covered. Chris gave you some really good tips about exploring those and really finding out what's out there. Lecturers as well. It's not just kind of employability teams, placement teams, but actually lecturers. You know, your second year or your first year, your second year lecturers that are around, using them for advice, using them to put you into contact with peers that have been through the same processes. Chris, again, I know you've been in this. You are a lecturer at that university and you've got lots of students that you would offer advice to.
Definitely. Again, just don't be afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Reaching out directly to companies. You know, I've had a lot of people reach out to me through LinkedIn that I've met at careers fairs asking for tips, for asking for extra information. I have never, ever looked at one of those messages and think, why are they messaging me? You know, I'm always there willing to help, willing to connect you with other people. So actually reaching out to the company directly can really go in your favor. And finally, stay positive. Because going through recruitment processes, you need to build up that resilience. The worst thing you can do is lose that motivation. So just use it, the feedback that you've received from any kind of, you know, situation where you haven't been successful, use it, reflect on it, get that feedback and just use it going forward to make sure that that next one is a positive experience. Any tips from any of the panel now? Sam, you know, have you got any tips for the guys going forward?
Yeah, I think for me, I look back and it kind of alludes to some of the points there. I think making sure that you're strategic with your approach into what kind of business or what kind of opportunity you're looking for. So obviously looking at enterprise, you know, know what you're applying for and understand what you want to get out of it.
But that's actually it from us, from the presentation side. So what I do recommend is, if you are kind of interested in anything you've heard so far on the webinar, please do connect with us on the social media platforms on the screen. We're more than happy to connect with you. It's a great opportunity to learn more about the industry that we're in, what's currently happening, or just seeing some of our great employees doing what they do best. It's all kind of on our social media platforms. As well, if you wanted to see any of the other topics that we have spoke about on the University Life series, that can be found on our YouTube channel as well. So yeah, that's it from me. I'm going to stop sharing now and just have a look if there is any questions in the chat box. So yeah, there is a question. How do you choose a company to apply for? I think we'll go to each of our panelists. So Hannah, can we start with you? How did you come across Enterprise? Or, you know, was it straight away that you knew about us, or how did you come across us if not?
So to be honest, I knew I wanted to go to Enterprise. To be fair, I was introduced to it in a lecture. The careers team came in and they gave us some advice, and that's when I booked in an appointment with one of our careers team in my university. And then we like looked through all the bits of information, and then I went to LinkedIn. So for me, I knew that I wanted to go to Enterprise, and if you look on the information that companies put up, you can match your own values to the company's values, and I think that's what helped me like match myself to Enterprise and knew that I wanted to come here.
Brilliant, great piece of advice. Yeah, looking on careers websites, looking at values, mission statements really helps you get a feel for what the company's all about. Sam, can I ask you the same question, please?
Yeah, so going back 5 or 6 years, yeah, similar to Hannah, I think the way I came across Enterprise was in the careers hub, you know, when the businesses come in, and I taught myself, had the confidence to go up to a variety of different desks and speak to different people. And it goes back to those values at Enterprise and what we're about. I kind of aligned myself to that and understood what I could get out of the placement. And that was the different parts of the business that I could get touch points on to understand whether I could specialize in one of them. That's kind of how I came across Enterprise and how I decided, but I wasn't sure at the beginning, and I don't think anyone is, to be fair. And then obviously after doing research and reaching out to people on LinkedIn, that really then allowed me to make an informed decision, which I think is really important for people in choosing a company.
Would you talk a little bit, Sam, about how you think doing your placement year has excelled yourself in your career? Like what's your current role and how did you get there?
Yeah, so I'm currently an area manager. I came back after my internship. Well, I worked similar to Hannah part-time in one of our stores, which was a great opportunity to keep my foot in the door and ensure that I was offered a job on the other side of my graduation, which was really important to me. I then got promoted to assistant manager straight after graduation. So I came back in as a manager, performed at the level that's expected and above, and worked really hard, and moved through to branch manager and performed there as well. And then obviously now area manager, with still a long way to go, which is the great thing about the company. It's fast progression, and in 6 years I've had 8 promotions. That's the thing about Enterprise and what we offer. It's what we're all about, and it's all internal as well. So that was the big thing about the internship for me. It did make me more employable for sure. You know, there was other companies that, you know, I could have applied for, and the CV would have allowed me to have a great interview. But I knew Enterprise was what I wanted to do on the other side of graduation, and having that role, a managerial role on the other side of graduation, was a great stepping stone and a great foundation for me to progress my career year over year on the other side of university.
Amazing. Wow, 8 promotions in 6 years. That is some going. That is some going. Chris, I want to kind of come back to that question. What advice would you give to students on choosing a company to apply for?
Initially, go with what interests you. You know, you're going to be working at a business for around 12 months, maybe more, depending on where you are. So you really want to enjoy the experience. So if you've got something that genuinely interests you, I don't know, maybe you're interested in like aerospace. So, you know, you've got opportunities there with say like Airbus or Boeing, then that's where you can ultimately start off your search. But make sure as well, going back to what Hannah was saying before, you know, you really want to make sure that your values resonate with that business before you go through and apply, because ultimately that's what businesses are going through and looking for. And also think as well about location. It might be a bit more challenging with regards to location. You might have to move from one place to another, but don't forget you are paid whilst you're on placement. So that will cover the cost of living wherever it is that you ultimately decide to move to.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you. Right, just a couple more questions. So some of them easier to answer, so I'll kind of flick through them. So when applying for placement, how easy is it to find a suitable location? Don't live near the major cities. Is it possible that local branches could take placements on? Yes, is the short answer to that. The good thing about us is that we have over 470 branches just in the UK and Ireland alone. They're not all in major cities. We do have rural locations. So basically when you apply, just put on there where you want to be located, and you can guarantee we'll have at least one branch in that location. So we will make sure you're within a commutable distance to one of the local offices. So that's one of the really, really big perks about us, is that we are everywhere. So you don't need to move if you don't want to. But on the other side, if you wanted to move, then we'll have locations wherever that is as well. Another question for you, Sam, actually off the back of what you were saying about your career, was what skills would you say you have to be a good placement student or intern?
I'd say the biggest things for me were attitude is the first thing. It's not really a skill, but having the right attitude coming to work every day. I think that's underpinned with leadership, and having that leadership mentality when you walk through the door at Enterprise really stands out and goes a long way. I think communication is a really important skill, because to be able to give great customer service and deal with other colleagues and work as a team, you've got to be able to communicate. So I think being confident with that as well is something that will really make you stand out throughout your internship, or even to get the internship. So I think those two key traits are things that I would focus in on an interview, in any placement. Communication and leadership are vital to being successful, for sure.
Wow, thank you. And Hannah, putting you on the spot here a little bit, what is one skill that you would say you learnt from your intern or your placement year?
I've learned so many skills, but a massive thing for me, which is something that I didn't even realize was so important during university, was actually having a skill of being able to network. And it's like communication, really, isn't it? But being able to network is what will help you succeed, and keep making sure that you've got the confidence to do that, because at first I definitely didn't. So just being confident and being aware of how impactful it can be, just to make that first step to network.
Yeah, perfect example. Yeah, networking can be really daunting, can't it? But
Yeah.
I think the more you do, the easier it becomes, definitely. Thank you so much. We've actually kind of run out of time now, but I just want to thank all of our panelists for joining us, and thank you all so much as well for listening and asking some really, really good questions. Hopefully this has given you a little bit, at least one takeaway from today as to why a placement could be important, and why that might be the right step for you as well. But Chris, thank you so much for your advice from a university standpoint, and Hannah and Sam as well, from kind of having done that placement year as well, and the skills that you've gathered. Thank you very much all, and have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.